continues to be a challenge. Also, there is little understanding of how local ad networks and alliances work and if they offer some new opportunities. So with this panel, we're going to explore how community and ethnic media can do a better job garnering ad sales through both traditional and newer routes. Tiffany Shackelford is the Executive Director of the Association of Alternative Newsmedia, and she'll moderate this panel. Ever since joining the AAN as Executive Director in 2010, she's focused on pushing the alternative media industry forward through research and development of smart digital tools, strategic partnering for monetizing streams, and community and demographics development, and reminding the public of the importance of local media. Tiffany will be joined on this panel by Gloria Constanza, who's a partner and chief contract strategist at Expósito and Partners, and Eleanor Cippel, who is the chief marketing officer at Coast to Coast. So both Gloria and Eleanor bring along rich experience in marketing, sales, and business development, and you can see more of their bios on the CCM site for this event. Tiffany, it's over to you. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. So excited by this brilliant brain trust sitting to my left. These are some smart ladies, and I've had such a great time speaking with them about this panel, and I hope that we can get all the things and all the things that we need to say and have some time for questions. If you have questions as we talk, we can take them. If you have something that you're like, oh my God, I must know right now, absolutely just point at me or throw something. I mean, not hard and not near the face.
No shoes, huh?
Yeah, no shoes, not today. I'm in no mood for that. Unless they're cute shoes, and then I will keep them. So, I thought because in the media space, we always have these meetings, and a lot of times around when we start to talk about money, we get a little doom and gloom. And I don't like that. Nobody likes doom and gloom. So I want to start with a little positive. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to tell me something that they're really excited about in the local and ethnic media ad space. Gloria.
There is a lot of great things going on in the advertising space. I think that we all say is driven by what some might consider the enemy, but I think they are like the opportunity, which is technology. I think that technology has opened an opportunity for all of us to kind of not only just be in that space, but how do we improve even what we have, that it might not be necessarily in that digital space. Because what it's doing is kind of making us all more competitive. So I do believe that, whether you are at the advertising side, whether you are at the agency side, whether you are the publisher, there are big opportunities. And where this opportunity lies, if you look around, and probably in the last 10 years, I think that in the advertising space, we have seen so many people that have become millionaires, and very young people. So, and a lot of it has been driven because of technology. And it's kind of how do you use the technology and kind of come out with that idea. And sometimes we believe that an idea might not fly, might not make it big, but you never know. So I think that these are like kind of very nice time for all of us here. And kind of using technology, but beyond technology to see how we can get a piece of the pie that is out there.
Excellent. Eleanor, what are you excited about?
So Tiffany asked me for one, but I have two, because
She's
I'm
an
an achiever.
overachiever.
That's
Yeah.
how I do. So, so I think the first thing I want to say that I'm really excited about is just in general in ad communication and storytelling space is video, and the opportunities that video bring forward, the propensity for people to be engaging with video, the expectation around video. Even if you look at things like, if you look at engagement on Facebook and look at the difference between engagement with posts that are flat posts that are just text versus photo-driven posts versus video posts. The video posts are getting, exponentially a great deal more play. So consumers are expecting video as part of their experience, and I'm really excited about what that brings to the table, just from every kind of opportunity, but particularly from monetization opportunities. The second thing I'm really excited about is this great trend towards the local experience. And I love what that creates for local publishers, community publishers, and ethnic publishers. This trend just around consumers driving towards local and the propensity to experience local. I think everyone in this room has an outstanding, incredible opportunity to create great local experience. And find ways, both in storytelling and working with brands and working with businesses, working with folks within your communities, to just drive forward local and then present great creative opportunities around the local experience that can extend that further.
And if I can add to that, because I did say that local was also one of the hottest things going on in the industry in general. And what has made it possible now is because of digital and the ability to kind of connect with a consumer at a zip code level, at a very specific neighborhood level. And when you think about it, local was something that print used to own. And I think that to some degree we had let it go, and we had digital now coming like the big guys that own this space. And it's like, how can you kind of go back and play that? Because local is really something that you started with. We talk about, local because right now it's a consumer that are asking for products to be done at the local level, for the restaurants and the QSRs to kind of be supporting local environments. So I think that the opportunity is there, and it's like, how, from a newspaper standpoint, how you can leverage that as well.
Absolutely. Excellent. So let's talk next about, let's talk networks first, then we're going to talk a little bit about agencies. So I think networks is one of those things that is become the catch-all. Oh, just go find an ad network. It'll solve all your problems. And I personally have spent the last 1.5 to 2 years researching all the ad networks out there for local, and really using, the idea of collaboration, amongst papers to get a good network. And I have to say, something I've found, and something that I want to tell everyone, if you haven't started to look at this, is that all ad networks are not created equal. And you really have to spend, or evil, either one, but you really have to spend some time vetting them. I don't want to overstate this, but you're getting married, and you better know who you're getting married to if it's tied to your bottom line. It took me a long time to find the one that I like for my alts, and it's AdForce. They're based in Ireland, and actually Paul is here from AdForce. I'm just going to give him a little moment because they're great, and it took me a long time to get them. So there you go.
When you talk about ad networks, you're talking about digital specifically, or print?
There's a ton. There's that's my digital one. I have a different one for print and a few others that I can pass along to you if you'd like. But so let's talk about networks. Eleanor, you have had so much experience with ad networks, good and bad, from I think what you've talked about.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the opportunity there and what you see.
Yeah, so I think, I agree with Tiffany completely. I think if you are going to play in the network space, if we've heard some words this morning around programmatic, if you're going to get in the space, you really have to do that thoughtfully. I think one of the things that I would just sort of bring to the forefront is that ad networks, programmatic buying, ways to allow other folks to automate your inventory is not your only answer. It can't be the primary leg in your strategy. You've really got to have a strategy. But there are some really great networks to participate in. There are some great organizations who are trying to pull together great networks. And then there are some qualifiers, right? If you are a digital-only ethnic publisher if you have, you know, a very small number of page views per month, a low user base, you know, ad networks and ad network rates they're not gonna save the bank or even send you running to the Dairy Queen, right? That's just, I mean, there's not enough volume there. So you really have to play strategically. There is an ability, however, to capitalize based on target audiences and targets with some of those networks. I think for ethnic publishers, one of the things that I would recommend even a bit more than networks is creating collaboratives together, and really looking at how you can leverage your audience together to drive a better or garner a better rate working together, because you've got greater reach and you can tell a story about what that audience looks like, how they respond, what their propensity is, what their spending power is, how to make that play. And then there are some specialized networks as well. So again, I think it goes back to Tiffany's statement early on that not all of them are created equal, and I almost said evil, and not all of them are evil, but not all of them are created equal. It has to be a really thoughtful process as you explore it for your digital space.
Can we talk about thresholds? Because I mean, obviously, that's what's going to make the difference. Talking about thresholds, that's going to be the difference whether you make any money or not. Is how many page views, how many uniques, all of that. From an agency perspective, what are meaningful numbers? And it's, you know, it's a tough situation for ethnic papers, because a lot of us are independent media. So you know, you've got limited resources, and you know, you're trying to break through in an extremely crowded.
Yeah, we talked about
Gloria
it.
and I were talking about that. You know, there's how many millions of websites. So you know, it's like you're trying to, you know, break through almost an impossible situation. Obvious content is key, but what I'm saying is, what are meaningful content thresholds?
So I'll answer the first part of this, and maybe Gloria can jump in too. So I think the first thing that you have to think about is any sort of ad network buy, any of those things are based on CPM. So that's 1,000 page views, right? So you can quickly just do the math on what your available page views are. So, you know, what your open inventory is, and do a calculation. And so if you were thinking that an ad network buy, and ad network buys don't necessarily garner a great deal, a high volume of dollars, but if they're, you know, if it's 70 cents per 1,000, I mean, you can do the math and make a decision on whether or not that's something that you want to participate in, or whether the value is there for you. I think the equation starts with, do you have open inventory? And is there open inventory on your website that you could enable? Can you create, or if you want to play in this space, is there an ad unit or a space that you would want to include in programmatic buying? Do you have enough data that you're able to get your audience segmented into some rich targets? So some of those rich targets may enable that CPM to move up from, you know, 70 cents to maybe $2.50 per 1,000. But I mean, you really have to look at the audience group in the equation to say, first, is this the right thing for me at this juncture, right? And then I think there are other plays, but let me turn it over to Gloria.
I think the network, or the famous word programmatic space, has become one of the most talked about issue for the last 2 years. And actually last year it became even more profound, precisely because of the point of publisher barely get anything. Okay, I mean, when you move into the programmatic space, you kind of need to pay many players. You need to pay the technology, you need to pay the data provider, and you need to pay the person that is managing the whole bidding process. So when you kind of look into it and you think about it, very little money goes into the publisher. So that is a conversation that took place and is taking place in the industry last year, which is called transparency. You know, clients are looking for transparency from the agencies just to ensure that they know exactly how much dollars are the publisher getting. So, I mean, that's a conversation that eventually we are hoping that there's going to become a standard. There will be a standard. That way, you know, for the publisher, they'll be able to see what exactly they can get. And even for the advertisers, they'll be able to see exactly what's going to what is called pure advertising. Now, the reality is that the world is moving into automation. It is what you're calling artificial intelligence. And the reason for that is because, the two key elements there. The first one, agencies are looking for productivity with the staffing. And as you mentioned before, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of websites, there are thousands of medias out there. And so how you kind of achieve that efficiently? Then you're talking about data, which, as a result of technology, the use of data has become so available to advertisers. And so therefore, through this automation, you'll be able to leverage all this data and be very succinct into selecting your target and where do you send that message to the target. So, whether you believe it or not, and you might say, I'm just a little guide in that space. Even one person, somebody that is out there, kind of looking where am I going to find the target, they might be able to serve that ad to that one individual that is on your website. The industry is moving programmatic. We cannot fight it. I think that we need to try to find the place at how we join them, how we try to make money out of it. Because it's not only just going to be digital, print is going to be moving there. Television is already starting to move in there. I think if you read the press and you hear the conversation, television is already getting into that direction at a fast pace. Not driven by the broadcaster. Nobody wants to move into that space. Because, you're kind of talking about, salespeople. I'm going to lay off a lot of salespeople. All these salespeople that I have, they're not going to be necessary. But I always say that there's still going to be room for salespeople. But those salespeople need to kind of be, have a different kind of mindset and being kind of creative. Because spot and dot, nobody wants to meet with anybody just for spot and dot. Do not send me a salesperson that's just going to sell me just an ad in a paper. I want to meet with somebody that's going to think about what my problems are for my clients, and they're going to come with sustainable solutions. The solution that's going to help us connect with our customers.
Right.
But yeah, there's always going to be the room for, that salesperson that's going to kind of bring the big ideas, because I don't think that artificial intelligence is there yet. It will get there though, and we all know that. But right now, like in the next 10 years, I don't think it'll be there yet. So we always still gonna need, that salesperson, but there's still also gonna be the need for the programmatic space. So,
Right, ad networks are not a replacement for your sales pressure, right? And then the other thing that sits with any sort of automated or network capability is you put forward what you have available in inventory. If you don't have available inventory, if you're at sellout or you're at sell through, then don't put any inventory on the network. Don't do it, right? It's really a formula around what is the best revenue strategy for you. It's not an either or conversation. It's really what's the holistic revenue strategy for you. Your richest, sorry, Mr. Network Guy, but your richest buy is going to be the buy that you can sell locally, that you can apply a creative solution around, that you can create a holistic solution for someone that you can build a relationship with, that you can serve and then advance sell further options. However, that's not always the easiest feat. So if you've got available inventory, it's a great slice in your revenue wheel.
So a multifaceted strategy is what you
Absolutely.
always are advocating for. Is that what I hear?
Absolutely.
Well, let's stay a little bit in the agency space here. Gloria, sorry, I'm going to keep you talking.
Okay.
I think, well, I know that I've tried to reach out to agencies with horrible results. I did not get through to them. I even call them something mean.
Which really helped.
It's really not helpful, and that was not a good move. But I even call them the 24 by 24s, which is 24-year-olds who have $24 million and spend it in 24 seconds. And that's not nice, and I apologize to all of them a little. I'd apologize more if they called. Now, you run a very specific type of agency, of course, But I was struck you had just a simple, amazing suggestion for reaching out to agencies. Talk to us about marketing to agencies, about getting on their radar, about building that relationship, about really getting that partnership solid.
It's not an easy task. It's not an easy task because there are hundreds and hundreds of people knocking on agencies' door and calling and emailing. And especially the younger generation, our millennial generation, they do not have the tolerance that boomers, had. I mean, we were kind of a little bit more open, answering the phone, responding to emails and so forth and so on. I mean, a millennial target is like, they don't even want to sometimes even respond to emails, and anything that they don't find that is going to be attractive or sexy, they're not going to want to get into it. So, I mean, something that I do not like this necessarily, but what I say to everybody, it is called Survivor. It is called Survivor. And, if you see that you're not getting the response from the junior person, then, draft a nice email, a nice letter. Don't use like those letters that are like antagonistic or anything like that. That's not going to take you anywhere. You draft a nice letter, touch the person from the human's point of view. Send it out either, to the next person, to the supervisor, to the director, to the CEO of that agency. And saying, you know what, just like you, I'm also in a business of making money. I believe that I do have a great product on my hand. Unfortunately, I have not been lucky enough to kind of get in front of your staff. Can you please help me open the door so that I can meet with them, at least for them to hear what I have to say? And and I did mention, and please do not say that I sent this letter to you, because otherwise they're not going to like me. Because that is one thing. They don't want to hear that you went to the bosses. Nobody, my staff. When somebody called me, I don't even tell my staff somebody called me. I just say, oh, you know what, I saw somebody, or I called them, or whatever, because everybody is very protected. Everybody wants to be the one that made the decision. Everybody wants to kind of have that power and that ownership. So even if you're going to draft that letter, just say, and by the way, please do not tell your staff that I don't share this with them, but find a way to kind of get me in front of them. And at the end, honestly, which is the part that I kind of hate to happen, but I say it is about survivor, and that is what I tell my staff all of the time. If you do not get the response, even from the CEO, maybe your second time that you reach out or your third time, it is time to then take it to the client. And again, very polite, very nice email. You know what? Because you also do not want to get the agency on your backside. It seems like your agency team has been very busy, probably working on your own businesses and all that stuff. But I do believe that I have a great product, and I would like to kind of get in front of them. How can you help me so that I can get there? It's like, again, because at the end of the day, eventually you're going to end up working with that person. So you don't want to kind of go against them or say the bad thing, because they can make your life miserable. So I think, it kind of better to kind of, I would say that with honey, you can get whatever you want.
That's right.
Okay.
Eleanor, you have some great experience building relationships with agencies. Can you talk a little bit about some of the strategies that you might have used in the past?
Yeah, sure. So I think when you're dealing with an agency, the first thing that you really need to think about is, well, there are several firsts. Okay, so the first thing I would say when you're dealing with an agency is that you want the business, you want to work with the agency, but you're not entitled to it. So adjust your posture, right? Make sure that you're not being incredibly aggressive and you're not being forceful. This agency and this relationship is your customer. You've got to treat them like your customer, even though you know that Gloria's agency may represent a great grocery brand that you feel like you could really benefit from, or that grocer, I hear this, that grocer should be with us. Well, okay. In this equation, the agency is your customer, not the grocer. So your approach around that agency is, how can you help them have success with their customer? That's the first thing. The second thing to think about is, Tiffany mentioned the 24-year-old. So the average agency buyer, unfortunately, is very young. They're millennials. So think about how millennials communicate. Think about how they behave in a day. Let me ask this question. How many folks in the room have a media kit? How many folks have a media kit that's more than 4 pages? How many folks have a media kit that's more than 6? And did you spend a lot of time creating that media kit? Okay, let's think about how millennials communicate. They communicate in tweets. You have 140 characters or less to get some attention from this media buyer, right? So you've got to get, so these media kits that you've created that are beautiful and that you labored over and that you spend tons of money printing are not helping you with this equation with these buyers. They don't have that attention span. So they're really interested in, as Gloria said, they're really interested in efficiency. So if you think about what their jobs are, they've got to buy across a multitude of platforms very efficiently, very quickly to represent a brand and try to get that brand the best results so they can continue to garner representation of that business. So for them, the important factors that you really bring forward are your value. What's the value of your audience, right? So if you had a statement that just hypothetically said, we reach 46% of the Hispanic population in the metro New York market. Our audience looks like this, 24 to 36 on average. We skew high towards women. And the women who are our visitors and readers have a very high propensity to buy X. So understand their buying power. They do this, they respond like this, they buy like this. So that while that postcard or email, short, succinct message, may not necessarily get their attention today, when they have a buy that looks like that, they at least have something that resonates, because it's 140 characters or less that you have to get them. So A, think about how you communicate to them, how you create a hero path for them. B, think about what the value is that you bring forward, and be sure to complete the sentence. It's not just, so they don't really care about your product. They're not buying your product. They care about the audience that you bring forward and what they will have a result doing, what they will act and do. They don't care how many years you've been in business. They don't care that you're the oldest Hispanic publication in the market. They don't care. They care that your audience is valuable and that they will act and respond. So how much of the audience can they get? How deep can they go with it? What will the audience do when they get them? So that gives them something that resonates, right? And then the next thing that I'll say, and I'll stop, is that when you're communicating with them, when you're talking with them, so you guys are in New York, so you have this incredible advantage in New York that so many media buyers or so many media companies don't have, is that the majority of the agencies that you want to deal with are here. It doesn't make them super easy to get into, but it certainly gives you a leg up, right? But when you're communicating with the agencies, think about who you're going to communicate with. The person that you're likely going to have a conversation with is 24 years old, maybe 25 if they're a senior buyer, right? So, I mean, it's true. So, so if you're trying to get an appointment with them, the things that you have done with old advertisers in your community are not the same tactics that are going to work with them. So just like you think about how you relate to a customer, how you think about who the best seller might be for a certain seller or for a certain customer or a certain advertiser, go through that same thought process with the agencies. Think about how you communicate with them, how you can get messaging to them, how they will respond to you so that you can get a meeting that's set up with them. And when you get in front of them, then you have an opportunity there to really take a few minutes to listen. So, and I say this, I'm going to say it again. You have a few minutes to listen, ask them questions and listen. And I know this happens because I have been in this seat. You finally get the appointment with the agency and then you run in and you've got like 10 minutes and you want to throw up everything that you know about your product like really fast. And so you talk like really fast and make sure they know everything about your circulation and how many people and everything that you have, and you almost hyperventilate them out the door. And when you leave, you have no more information to be a good partner to them. So sit back, breathe a little bit, ask them questions about their clients, what their clients are looking for, what kind of solutions their clients what kind of solutions they're looking to bring their clients, and how you can be a good partner in this space to them, right? Because they're your customer. And then tell them all the wonderful things that you can bring forward with your audience. not the history of your publication or your website. Okay, I'm going to pause.
That was great.
What's the best way to reach them? I mean, there's voicemail, nobody picks up the phone. Should I send a postcard with all those details? Should I go to a bar and chat about Vanderpump Rules to these kids and,
Yes.
find out that way?
Yes.
Like, you know
yes.
what I mean?
Yes.
It's like really, okay.
So yes on short messaging, yes on, yes.
Tweet, these sort of
Tweet,
things.
phone calls is
Okay.
not going to work.
So just chat them up when you can
Phone
see.
calls is not going to work.
Okay.
Nobody answering phone calls anymore. I think it's email. I do
And
believe.
friends, I mean, can you send that postcard? Will they get it? Is the mail?
It can't be the only thing that you do.
No, of course not. But a strong visual with all those little details. I'm just curious to know if they would receive it.
Not all those details. 140 characters or less.
Yeah, I think going back again also to the media kit, that was a good example. I think that today's media people, they no longer hold media kits, which is what I said to them, I wish that I would grow up during this time, because, in the past, we used to build files and files of media kits. Not anymore. I mean, when you go into an agency with a media kit, rarely people go and save it. Because automatically everybody goes online to find out what you have. So just definitely you need to make sure that you do have your media kit online. And another thing is that when you have it online, also make sure that you have a number that is immediately accessible. Because some people contact me, send me an email. No. Media people are kind of working very fast. They want to kind of, if they have questions, they want to ask you, they want to make sure that that phone that you have on that site, that they're going to call it and somebody's going to be answering that there. And again, it is also, again, having the ideas. Agencies nowadays, because it's not anymore spot and dot. Those days of spot and dot are gone. Agency meets, agency brainstorm, agency talks about idea. I think that you need to understand, when it is the time that agency go into planning. Do not go in December, because in December we already have an idea of what we're going to do, what we're going to present, and so forth and so on. I think that you need to kind of start visiting client even now. Why now? Because the industry is starting to get ready for the famous upfront, a new front in the way of digital. So you kind of start laying out an idea of what your plan is going to look like now. So, how can you start getting in front of them, understanding what the issues are, and then coming back with solutions? People kind of looking for ideas. Everybody is looking for the big ideas and what's going to sell the products.
And I just want to add to that, keep in mind when you're trying to call in an agency, so I think you asked a really good question, how do I get that to them? So know that in many cases, this is a long-term stalkership. It's not I'm going to call and date you and we're going to kiss goodnight and everybody's going to be happy, right? I mean, very often you've got to play through all of the pathways possible to try to get a way to get a meeting or to get in front of these folks. And again, you have to think about where they are, right? So, I mean, they're on social media. So can you follow them on Twitter? Look for where they are. I mean, this approach to get to these folks it's not an easy feat. So then I'm going to give you one little Eleanor tidbit that works I think in any sales operation. So Gloria said send a letter to the person who runs the agency. So I say, in addition, if you can send the letter to the agency, but here's a really good path. So, and Michelle's going to giggle because she's heard this probably 5 times. Call the CEO, not because the CEO is going to answer the phone, because they're not, but they probably have a receptionist who might. And then tell the receptionist, I'm sure you're not the person I should be talking to. However, this is the phone number that I could find. Could you direct me to the person who does this? And if they say, sure, that's so-and-so, then say, would you transfer me? Because an internal transfer comes from the CEO's office. So if they're at their desk and they don't want to answer the phone, they'll probably answer that one, right? So then if you get their voicemail because they haven't answered the phone, you can very easily say, I was directed to you from the CEO's office. They don't know that you may have been a cold call. You could be his niece. They have no idea. So they're more likely to maybe call you back, right?
Yes.
So,
That's
you
like
know,
that's a strategy.
So stalk them and be sneaky.
yes.
There you go. I'm done
Yes.
here. I gotta go.
And as far as I know, you really can't I haven't heard of any instances where, you know, folks have been arrested or any stalker laws have been applied in media buying anyway.
You've been very patient.
That's fine. Can I just add that the whole perspectives and cliches on millennials, quotes, isn't might be perceived when you approach these people. So saying stuff like, right, I mean, there are people who people communicate in 140 characters, but it's not just millennials. And people answer the phone, people don't answer the phone, it's not just millennials.
Right.
And I just think that that kind of conversation isn't really productive. And it can, my young people, we can pick up on that. And we have a lot of other pressures in the way we work versus the people who used to work in the same positions 10 or 20 years ago. So I just wanted to mention that I'd like to be considerate of,
Yeah.
of any
We don't
ageism
mean
that
to
might
make
be-
the generalizations. for that.
How would he approach you? I mean, how should we approach you? Someone like you. That's different from what they're suggesting.
Well, I'm not in ad buying or ad sales, so I couldn't really communicate to that. But I mean, the thing that's worked for me in every endeavor that I've ever done is networking. So it's stalkership actually. It's exactly what it is. It's how can I be at the same places as these people and have a face-to-face interaction because that's what is productive.
Yeah.
So again, stalking, universal truth, no matter what generation. Okay. I'll get you next.
I spend probably 60% of my sales times with marketing agencies, advertising agencies, especially the large ones. And I don't want to agree fully that they are like our clients, especially those ones that they feel they are mediators or judges or stuff like that they claim to deliver to their client, our campaigns, our proposals. And I was able to successfully change their minds in some aspects. So my question to you, especially maybe for Gloria, how should we approach to them where they think they know what they're doing, but they don't understand the market? In my particular case, I cover the Central New York area, New York State, by the way, Central New York State area between Albany and Rochester. And I run into marketing agencies that they think the market over there is similar to the one in Atlanta or the one in Texas. And the other issue is that has to do also with the subcultures that we have in the Hispanic community, where we have marketing agencies that are predominant with Mexicans or South Americans, Puerto Ricans, etc., that the approach is clearly, and I have some colleagues in here that probably will agree with me, is completely different. I had two successful cases with the Avocados of Mexico and Fight Droga, where I was able to convince them to change the marketing campaign in our publication in Central New York. So my question to you will be, how tactical should we be approaching to them and tell them in very nice words, I know better how to do this than you. You know, that kind of.
This is the you don't know your ass from third base question. Is that, I just want to, I want to give you guys something to tweet to the millennials.
But I'm bummed.
You know, fortunately or unfortunately, the industry is like that. I mean, and it's exactly, we have a lot of people that do not necessarily know the market. That is the point where sometimes you need to kind of reach out to the top level, because somebody at the top would understand and will have a better idea and you know, can have the dialogue. But yeah, there are many occasions where a client might have the businesses, the wrong agency that really do not understand the culture at all. And even if you take it to the top level or not. And you know, at that point it's again, you know, like partners, because like I said, I think everybody, we all into this together. And everybody wants to kind of offer the best for the client. I think that, you know, it is like you feel like you can provide them with support and the knowledge that you have about this consumer, that you can kind of guide them and help them, that you want to become a resource for them. And that you want to help them because, you know, unfortunately you cannot go against them, but it's like, you know, you feel that you own this market because you've been around for a long time, you know the different cultures, Therefore, you can be a resource for them. So instead of kind of going against them, it's like a positioning yourself as a consultant, somebody that can help.
Especially when you're a small publishing company, because they look at me mostly because of the numbers, and I'm trying to defend that with the fact that we are the only alternative for the diverse readership that we have over there, and we are effective. And we prove it also with the numbers. So sometimes that ups and checks.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing about that we all feel that a lot of the art in the industry has lost, especially as it pertains to the ethnic segment, because we have become a number. It's what I said, we have become a number that you just pressed in a computer and that's it, and you know it all. And unfortunately, if we understand our market so well, we know that not all of them will be in a computer, because the data is not captured even by one of the biggest researcher companies that is out there. Because many of them are just afraid and they do not provide that information. They don't even have credit cards. So I mean, and that art, which is the way that we started and built the Hispanic industry, especially, and I can talk about from the Hispanic industry standpoint, that art got lost. And it is part of that passion. And somebody mentioned passion, and it was Tiffany, which is so passionate. I can see her here, right? and it is kind of, again, how you bring that passion back to the industry. How you bring that passion back, I mean, as it pertains to the Hispanic market, we definitely lost that, completely lost it. Even myself, sometimes I see myself in places that I say, oh my God, I don't defend this market the way that I used to. Because what had happened is that instead of collaborating and working together and enhancing everything that's around us, we kill somebody and we say, you know what, that television in Spanish, no, there's no longer the Spanish dominant, they don't have the money. They're not gonna buy your car, they're not gonna buy this. But my English dominant, yes, they will. The acculturated Hispanic. And that's not how it should be. I mean, because that's exactly what we say. Spanish dominant paved the way as to why we are here today. Why the Hispanic market exists. And what I say is that the market, as the market mature, we kind of getting into a bigger pie, and that bigger pie has a group that is acculturating, because God, let's be real. I mean, 65% of the Hispanic millennials were born here. That's a big number, but you have another 35% that were born foreign born, right? And you have still a chunk of Latino that feel comfortable in Spanish. So it's like, I can start talking to this group in an acculturated fashion. That is exactly why we talk about diversifying and start addressing this consumer also in language, in English and in culture. So, but you also had your Spanish dominant, and you cannot abandon that. And unfortunately, there is so many data out there that kind of go against what we know in the art that we know about this marketplace. So it's like, how do we bring the art and that passion back into the industry? And the same thing applies to print. I mean, print, we all know that have been affected significantly. And yeah, believe it or not, technology got a lot to do with it. And when it comes to the Hispanic space, this is what I call a double whammy. It is the technology, but it's also the fact that there's a big percentage of a market that is acculturating and is becoming more bilingual, and therefore they're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable in the English space. But again, that does not mean that there's not an opportunity for a Spanish language. There's a big group of our audience that feel very comfortable, especially when it comes to reading in Spanish. That they feel great when they pick up a paper and that paper talks to them about back home like nobody else can do, and they have that in front of them. I mean, those are the elements that is a little bit hard to kind of sell to a 24 years old or a 27-year-old. And it's like, how do we escalate? It's escalating the conversation. It needs to go beyond that level.
So, well, Arthur has had his hand up for a while. Can I start? Are you good? Okay, it's been covered. Okay, Javier.
Yeah, my name is Javier Castaño from Queens Latino, and we all know here that we need to understand technology better, sophisticate ourselves better, and our media kits to be shorter, whatever it is. My question is for Eleanor. How do you deal with an agency that calls you every time, send you a text, help me with this press release, go to this press conference, do this, do that, and you do your job, right? And when you call back and say, do you have some ads from that company? They come up with all the excuses. It's like, oh, you are good for PR, but you are not good for advertising.
So I would say a couple of things to that, and maybe have a couple of questions. So if you're faced with that situation and you haven't had a conversation that's a really meaningful, how do we have a meaningful partnership conversation, I would make an appointment with the folks that I have a relationship with at that agency ASAP and sit down and talk with them about what you offer, the value and the reach of your audience, what you can help them with as they're trying to create great solutions to their clients. And then also what, really a good partnership conversation. So it sounds to me like you've got a great one-sided partnership that's going on and it's really beneficial to them. The second thing I would say is if they're calling you and asking you for help, there's a practice that I advise publishers to do, and that is to step back from your business and really look at what do you sell, who do you sell to, and what's important to them, what do they need. And some of the things that are services that we offer that we just kind of do for free are really value services that because people are leveraging your consultation, your expertise, your guidance, all of those things. And to an extent, in a good partnership, you want to contribute some of that, but to an extent. And then there's a fee, because that's a service. Expertise is a service. Your knowledge is a service. And so if it really is this one-sided kind of partnership that is not to your benefit, my advice would be to figure out how to turn that table and really set some boundaries and ask some questions.
Can I make a comment to
Really quick, we're running out of time and we have 2 more questions. Sorry.
It's a huge problem. That what Javier mentioned is a big problem. We get approached by thousands of PR agencies, and what's happening is corporations are paying them because it's cheaper to have them disseminate the information than buying ads. So what I've done is, if I have a relationship and the corporation is my client and I get a request from a PR agency, I will go ahead and publish. But if you're not my client, then I simply say I'll be happy to, and I'll quote them a rate and say I'll be happy to do this for a quarter page for X amount of dollars. Because that's the only way and then let me tell you, the drain has stopped pouring.
Great.
Yeah.
Hi, hello, my name is. Hello.
Why don't you shout it?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello. Okay.
Okay, my name is Abu Tahir and I'm from Bangla Patrika, and my question is, what is the most irritating behavior from a publishing company to an ad agency? And then number 2, what is the most sophisticated way to have a relation with them?
So what is the most irritating? What is the most
irritating? The publisher to an agency. I honestly, I would say that I think that the most irritating is when a publisher, and that again, when a publisher does not give an agency the opportunity, and even escalating it, when that publisher takes it to the client. I think that you need to kind of first try to do the best that you can, as I mentioned before, and even as Eleanor mentioned before, how you kind of try to find a way to get connected with that person. And, and getting to that, media buyer, as we mentioned before, it's like you need to kind of give them a carrot. Because, again, they get tons of phone calls, tons of emails. So whatever you present to them, it needs to be so attractive that they're going to say, wow, this sounds interesting for my client. So it's like kind of, you need to do a little bit of a homework. Okay, understand, okay, what are the clients that this agency has? And what are some opportunity that you feel will relate to that target audience for that specific client? So now you're kind of presenting them with a solution versus just a cold call, and here I am, I just want to meet you. Okay.
So we have one last question.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Gao. I'm calling from the World Journal. I have a different set of questions. World Journal is one of the largest Chinese newspapers, and then we have been in business for 40 years. So we get a lot of agency ads because everyone who wants to target the growing Chinese market, they go to us. And then but the last 2 years, we've been bothered with a different set of questions. There's a free community newspaper called Apple Times and then New Dynasty TV. They try to get those agency accounts, but when they are not getting those, then they go to the agency and even go to the client directly, the CEOs of McDonald's and AT&T, to attacking us. What they do is that they accuse us was the media controlled by China, or was pro-China, which is there's no base. So the last 2 years we've been very busy to.
What is your question, my friend? What is your question?
My question is, do they cross the line as a different community media and to attacking us? Do they go to the agency and go to the client? No, they attacking us, attacking other publication as well,
The publication are attacking you.
Yes, they are attacking us. They said we are controlled by Chinese government.
Wow, yeah, that's a political one.
Yeah, they use that. There's no base,
Yeah.
Okay, but because you are like a rep for newspaper.
No, we are the newspaper.
You are the newspaper,
Yeah.
and there's some other paper that kind of
They try to get the ad, but they don't get it, and then they go to the agency. They said, why don't you place it? They go to McDonald's. Why you place an ad in a pro-China newspaper? That's an accusation, which
Yes.
is no base.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is exactly what I was saying before, that, among our own communities, we kind of attack each other, which I believe that's the wrong approach. Because everybody needs to sell themselves based on the merits, based on what they bring to the equation, not at the expense of killing another publication. I mean, and I think that you need to kind of write it and make it very clear to them, or call them and set up a meeting, because that's not the way to go. That's exactly why we are our worst enemy. Within our own communities, we kill each other instead of building it.
No, this community is just one newspaper and then the rest, So they are standalone. They accuse everybody else,
Okay.
So another thing that I would just mention there, I think Gloria is absolutely right, and I would try to contact them and just go, look, really, this isn't healthy for any of us, right? So I would go down this pathway to say, how do we benefit from this? How does anybody benefit from this? But on the other side of that, I think your messaging back with your clients, if it's costing you business, or if you need to manage risk, I would create some messaging back to clients, not that is that kind of messaging, but I would bring back the value statement of the audience, right? I would just create some messaging that you email your clients and that you email your agencies, add some statements to that. Thank you for your business. This is the audience that we bring forward. We have this reach. They have these kinds of buying propensities. This is the power of our audience, because at the end of the day, there's a result that matters for the client, and reaching an audience who's going to make a buying decision or some sort of purchasing decision is really what their intent is. So be intentional about how you counteract that, using just the strength of your audience and the power of it without getting into the muck, which is where it seems like your competitor is.
And that's a wrap. I want to thank these lovely women for all of their smart comments.
Tiffany, Gloria, and Eleanor for a great panel. The next panel is Rethinking Digital Advertising. One quick logistical note before.
Can I give you mine? I gave all my. Okay. I love everything about you, even down to the fashion and that ring. I mean, you're just fabulous. So thank you. It's a great panel. Good. It's very helpful.